Today's episode's brought to you by School of Movies, our favorite Overwatch podcast.
It's high noon.
And welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I'm your host, Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. What's going on?
Oh, just 15 takes in, and we finally got this one ready to go.
We did, yes. And we might as well address the elephant in the room while we're here and it's fresh in your mind.
Which one?
We haven't lost our minds. School of Movies is not an Overwatch podcast. It just, if you search iTunes for Overwatch, it inexplicably appears before us, which has infuriated me. So Blevins wants to rub it in a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
it's just a great Overwatch podcast. It has nothing to do with Overwatch, but it's a little bit relieving that the iTunes algorithm just means as close to nothing as possible.
Yes,
or
very little.
It's dumb is what we're trying to say here. But speaking of iTunes, all of the the additional shows that we do, whether it's Foul Play, whether it's Around the Payload, Ever Upward,
Blackwatch Report,
all of those shows have their own separate podcast feeds. And I checked, it actually is High Noon Productions. That's like the creator that it's called. I don't know if apparently you can't search for that. Just search for the individual name and you will find it on whatever podcast platform you are on. Unless it's Google Play Podcast, because I haven't done that one and that one's weird. But all of the other ones.
And this week or next week will be the last time that all of the shows are going to appear in the main podcast feed. Yeah. It is very, very soon
that
they're separating off.
One of your final warnings. If you want to, I'm going to, if someone, we're just going to publicly shame everyone who, after we stop putting it on, asks us where those shows went. We're going to publicly shame them. So you've been warned, and you will probably be warned again, that you will be publicly shamed if you ask us a dumb question like that.
We need to make a point to give one more round of announcements on each show as well, because I don't think I've actually mentioned it on Foul Play once. So if we have anybody that listens very specifically to that show, we might not want to shame them too bad, because I've definitely dropped the ball there. But I do have a feeling a good chunk of the listenership is shared, so most of you won't have any excuse.
Yes. But let's just quickly go over some of those shows that we have done. Blackwatch Report, Death, why don't you talk to us a little bit about that one, because Thorne filled us in on what this episode is about.
Yeah, so this Wednesday, 6 p.m. Eastern, they are recording. You can go over to twitch.tv/Blackwatch Report to watch their show recorded live, much like you can watch ours live over on twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. But this week, they're going to be recapping the first week of Contenders. So there's a lot of matches going on literally right now as we speak. It's like near 24 hours just on cycle. Like it's just NA, then EU, then Korea, then Australia. Like it's just cycling through all of them right now, which is a pretty great time to be an Overwatch fanatic, to be honest, because every day of the week right now there is something going on. So Blackwatch Report is where you'll be kept up to date on all of the tier 2 scene, everything going on over there. A lot of player movement, stuff like that. These players are switching teams fast and furiously, so a lot to keep up on. If you're trying to track it, I definitely recommend you guys give it a listen.
Definitely going to be the best place that I know to get some in-depth analysis of the tier 2 scene. We also, of course, had an episode of Around the Payload. We had I Play Games from Omnic Lab. We had Spider from Overwatch League Network. We had Taco from Overwatch Score, and we had Doa from that Doa from the Overwatch League, the one that is, the caster.
From Monty and Doa.
From Monty and Doa, yes. The not the Husky StarCraft guy, Doa. That was a joke on the show. But yeah, so we had that last week. And this week we have another episode lined up. I'll say I'm just going to say, I'm going to leave the guests unnamed thus far, but we do have at least one more person that is part of the Overwatch League crew is what I'll say. And I'm sure going to be some returning faces. We had another episode of Foul Play. So if you're a fantasy Overwatch League player or enthusiast, or you're interested in it, or you want to, we talk a lot about the general news here, and we also talk about the teams here. But if you want to hear more about the players and how they're doing specifically and how that might affect, I mean, we obviously focus it around fantasy play, but if you're interested in that aspect of it, definitely check out Foul Play. It is a fun show to be on. It's honestly, I've missed a couple weeks and I've listened to them. It's a fun show to watch too. It just has a little bit of a different feel because it's more like we're competing against each other the whole time that we're also talking about stuff.
Right. And we get to smack talk each other a little bit more than normal, things like that. Like we only get to do that here on like rivalry week when it's New York versus Houston. But been a good time.
And speaking of New York, another episode of the ever upward show that I've started, the New York Excelsior fan show, is going to be going up as well. I recorded that literally a couple hours ago. So that's what the show did last week. Let's talk about what we individually did. Death, anything fun and exciting happened for you this week?
I've been doing a little more comp play. So I did recover, like right after I told you guys I placed really well, about halfway through Masters to GM. And then 6 games in a row of levers, sim mains, torp mains, like literally, like that was just all it was for 6 games.
Oh, you were in
so I went back
too?
to some old teammates, found a group just to like bring, 1 or 2 other people with me into the queues that weren't going to troll and pick throwy heroes and stuff like that. So, was able to do a little bit of climbing back to around 3,700. Still hoping to make that GM push. We'll see how it goes in the next, I'd say, week or so as I get my random off times in between Overwatch League and things like that to play. Otherwise, though, we did our first game night on Saturday, and it was so much fun. I'm not even going to attempt to name everybody that was there and participated. But a big thank you to absolutely every single one of you that did show up. We had a couple other podcast hosts in the house. I will miss somebody if I try to name them.
I know Blazing Bob was there because he's been in the chat. He's been in our Twitch chat for like 4 days now, just like dormant.
That is a fact. Yes, he has yet to leave. And it feels like I've yet to sleep since that happened, because it was the night where daylight savings kicked in, so it was like, oh, I'm playing, it's getting pretty late, it's 4 in the morning, like holy cow. It was just instantaneous how fast that happened. So a lot of fun. Thank you all so much for joining us, and really appreciate it. Next time Blevins will be there, or we won't schedule it that day, but we just wanted to get one running and going to kind of get the process started and learn a little bit about what we'll need and what it'll take to run, since it was our first one. So big thanks again to everybody that showed up.
Yeah, I wasn't able to go to that one because it was my girlfriend's birthday this weekend, so I was wrapped up in all of that, all those festivities, which, by the way, it was kind of crazy. She has, like, way more friends than I do, and they came from, like, all over. Like, she had friends fly in from Arizona to come to, like, her birthday party in Buffalo, New York. It's like, man, wow, your friends are crazy.
I don't know if I like anybody enough to fly to Arizona.
I was thinking the same exact thing. I'm trying to think of like which of my friends would I fly like, over, which of my friends would I move more than like 2 hours to even do anything for? Like I
wouldn't even send a postcard.
No.
You will get a Facebook message from me, and that is a maybe. That's a maybe.
That is a hard maybe. But I did check. I was just like looking at the Discord because you guys were talking about it, and I'm like, oh, let me just see who showed up. I'm like, I want to see it. There's like 20 something people in there. I'm like, holy crap, that's awesome. So huge thanks to everyone that showed up. A game night is something that we've wanted to do for a while, but it just hasn't been in the stars for us.
It felt like more work than it felt like it was going to be more work than it was.
Right.
And it's like a little stressful when you're doing it. And partially because I was like shoutcasting for the first little while. So
Which
I'm like
is awesome.
trying to like manage the stream and everything like that. And it was a lot of fun doing the shoutcasting. I'm sorry to any casters that are listening. Not as hard as I expected it to be. Not that I was anywhere near good at it, but I just mean like able to keep some semblance of hype at the right moments and things like I was doing a terrible job in the individual moments, but just I was able to like talk, have that conversation, throw to Kyle, the other host on Black Watch Report, Kyle Wynn. You know, he was casting with me a little bit as well. We wanted to get the Monkey Prince in, but he had to go. So that's something we'll continue to do in the future, and maybe even just let other people cast it. You know what I mean? That not necessarily from our Twitch channel or whatever, but we'll tweet it out, things like that. We want to have a lot of fun with this, give people a chance to do some things they don't normally get to do, whether that's play with higher SR players. You know, some of my old teammates were there, so there was a good chunk of like Masters going into GM players, intermingling with bronze players and things like that. So it created some lopsided matchups, but on the overall, I think everybody had a pretty good time with it.
Right. We might even be able to get some mild and minor celebrities in there as well, depending. So it's definitely a platform for us to interact with you guys even more, and you know, just to play and have fun, which is going to be awesome. And
it won't be the last one.
It won't be the last one for sure, because we are going to be doing the 12-hour stream at some point. This was pretty much our litmus test of like, should and how would we include a game night in the 12-hour stream. It's not going to be a 12-hour game night because that just doesn't.
You won't last that long.
It won't work. It won't work. But it might be. It's going to definitely be part of it for sure, because I'm sure that will help it go faster for us whilst we're doing it. But yeah, so that's awesome. But enough about us. I don't think I have anything else that I need to talk about in that regard. Let's move on to what did you guys do last week, and of course, my favorite segment of the show.
Overwatch Today, meme of the week.
Of course, the meme of the week. This week brought to us by none other than Zappos, or well, I don't
McDonald's.
No, yeah, brought to us by McDonald's, but well, at least I think it was Zappos. I don't know. There was a mysterious figure that greeted all of the Florida Mayhem when they went up to their match. Death, do you want to talk to us about this one?
Yeah, so it was, I mean, it was definitely Zappa, spoiler alert. But he was, you know, wearing a Florida Mayhem hat and had like this big, you know, black
trench
coat
coat
on and
sunglasses.
and the patented Zappa's beard, which hides the other 3/4 of his face that, that the glasses don't. And it was just like they were like stopping to like shake his hand, and then the camera's like focused on this weird guy that like made the entrance awkward, and he turns around and he gets this big grin on his face, and he takes the glasses off and stuffs them in his pocket and unzips his coat and opens it up, and there's his Florida Mayhem jersey. And it was just a really, really funny moment, as the Florida Mayhem walking out to the stage usually is a pretty funny moment, to be perfectly honest with you. They've been great so far at finding ways to entertain us, even when their match play necessarily isn't doing it. And in this case, they gave us that. They gave us both this week. They gave us the meme and the play. So no complaints there. But basically just a great way to announce the fact that this man is here and ready to join the team. I know a lot of their fans have been frustrated with the total of 6 players that they have, and you know, the future, honestly, legitimately, for Florida fans, I think you can get pretty excited now. It looks pretty bright for you guys. So this was just another fun classic Florida Mayhem meme. Florida Memehem. That's the new name. Yeah, so it was just a lot of fun, and a great little. Yeah, it's just, there's something about Overwatch League. They've done a phenomenal job so far of incorporating WWE antics in exactly the right moments, when it's 100% appropriate and makes the most sense and allows you to still take the league seriously and things like that. And this was without a doubt 100% another example of a WWE moment in Overwatch League. Very, very well.
Yeah, what they need to do.
Tip of the hat to all Florida meme fans and anyone involved in that.
Yeah, 100% executed flawlessly. What I really want them to do is I want them to have let each of the teams pick like intro music. Like, it doesn't need to be like crazy, like the Undertaker music. Like, I want it to be like I get like they have the Overwatch themed music when the teams come out, and like that's great and it sets it up. But like, I want each team to have their own music when they come out, because I think that
like real songs I think can even be used. Like think of like the Dallas Fuel. There's that Metallica song called Fuel. Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. Like that should just be playing when they come out. 100% agreed.
Yeah,
and the Outlaws Are Coming should probably be playing.
The Outlaws Are Coming.
Oh, I had had that one ready. But yeah, no, I think it would be cool if they had intro music. I think it just like, and I'll talk about this later, but it's not so important that we need to wait on it. Like the outside of the game stuff, like we've talked about this for many, many months, and it may even be years now. Like booing should be a thing. Rooting for your team, being excited about your team. Like I think we finally started to see like the communities kind of come together, and like it has really only manifested for the LA teams and a little bit for San Francisco, like in the arena, because like it's hard to have like dedicated Florida Mayhem fans like in LA every week. But like the Gladiators, like when like during that match when they're chanting "Shields Up," like I was getting goosebumps, like hearing, like you hear it over. I believe it was Monty and Doa were casting, and it's like you hear the chant from the crowd, and it's like that's like the live sporting event like experience that really I think is going to differentiate Overwatch League from anything else that we've seen in esports. It's like that little like that gem is what we're looking for here, and
that's the dream. That's why I can go to any sporting event on the planet, and regardless of how I feel about the sport. I've never been to an NBA game. I feel very, very convinced if I were to go to one, and you know what I mean, it would be a phenomenal experience. That is exactly what you need to make people want to go to the stadium on game day, even when it's, I mean, how do the Bills possibly fill a stadium when they're playing against the New England Patriots? Like it's been how long since we've won, and or even you've been able to expect them to have a decent chance at winning. But yet, like, it's all those external factors. It's I hate those guys. I'm done. Like, I don't care if it's unlikely. I want to be there if it happens. It's the crowd atmosphere, and all that stuff is the mob mentality is a real thing, and it sweeps you away. And I'm sure there was people that don't really care about the LA Gladiators there. Like there were Shock fans in attendance that day, chanting "Shields Up" just because they got swept away with the moment. Like it's a lot of fun to be in a crowd like that.
Yeah, you like feel that energy, like it's just a human thing. So I'm really glad to see that actually start to materialize. I was a little bit afraid that it might not. Even though, I mean, like I've been to live events like the World Cup and other esports events at BlizzCon, and it, like you get that, but not in the same way, because like BlizzCon and even the World Cup, it's like a bunch of people from all over the world, like kind of generally rooting for one thing over the other.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people with a shared interest, and like it happens a little bit when like Team USA's out there. But
but it was
this
nice
is different.
It's really nice to see that like actually I'm rooting for this team and I'm rooting against the other team, not like, oh well, I kind of want them to win, and like, but if they don't, like I'm gonna go see like 100,000 panels of stuff, so who cares? It's like, no, I paid to be here, I came out to see my team win, I'm going to root as loud and as hard as I can, and like that I can't wait for. But it's nice to see that it's actually happening. But let's move on to not a new segment, but I made a new drop for the news segment, like I said I was going to. So let's just oh no, I don't have the button. Where is it? Okay, let's just move right into the news section.
It's high news.
Yeah, it is as dumb as you thought. You did hear what you thought you heard. It is that dumb. It's high news. Let's go. But elephant in the room here. XQC's gone. He's been released, air quotes, mutually by the Dallas Fuel.
I don't even know about mutually. He was.
Well,
the
report said mutually.
Have released XQC, there doesn't require any. I mean, what he's said, his comments make me think he was ready. But I think given his statements and the general feel in the community about those statements and everything that happened, I do think it was important for the organization to release him, not for him to step away.
Right.
It was important, I think, for the organization, for the Dallas Fuel, their reputation. I mean, it's basically damage control at this point.
Yeah.
But no longer will he be in the Overwatch League. Starting the moment this podcast ends, actually starting the moment around the payload ends this week, DeFran treatment
Right.
in order here.
Right. Yeah. You will start losing points for bringing up XQC because he doesn't play. Well, okay. With the caveat of he's technically like he still could be picked up by another team.
Yes.
But for all intent, well, for the most part, most of the stuff that people are going to want us to talk about in regards to XQC, not going to be Overwatch League related, and that is the DeFran treatment. Like if it were talks of like DeFran is signing with a team and it's not a meme, or DeFran is scrimming with the Houston Outlaws, like okay, that's something we could talk about. But basically everything else, that's DeFran treatment. You're losing points on around the payload. You're getting called out, and yeah. So no, the true around the payload grinders that try to win every week are gonna use this to their advantage. I think, and I'm willing to give them that competitive advantage this week.
And in the meantime, I'm over here singing the Mr. Rogers theme song. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm just happy he's gone because I don't like the conversations about the external factors. I the same thing with football, with everything. I like the game, and I want to talk about the game because it's my escape from all those external things. And
right,
you know what I mean? It's what I like to do with my spare time, not discuss politics. You know what I mean?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right.
And that's kind of these conversations have that feel to it. I like the game for the game, and that's what I want to talk about. So we're gonna keep the conversation after this pretty clear of that kind of thing. Though sometimes it is to an extent.
Right. And in that vein, I just wanted to, we're going to kind of do all the XQC stuff now and kind of put a bow on it and then move on. But I found this pretty interesting from Malik. So, you basically would have had to have been under a rock to not know the whole controversy and what's going on. And I'm not going to go into it. So if you really want to know, just Google XQC and you'll, the first like 800 things or the first 800 things on Reddit are all basically telling you what happened. But Malik basically responded to a offensive tweet that was referencing the whole controversy, and I thought it was kind of interesting and telling of how he responded. He said, "It's folks like you that are part of the reason that this happened," in reference to XQC getting released. "I truly feel bad for XQC. He needed a mentor, a big homie, someone level-headed to provide him some guidance, but he had folks like you, and look where we are." And think what you will about XQC and what happened, but like he did, like I think things would. I agree with Malik to an extent here that if he had someone, like if you think like if Jake were like, if this were like season 2 or like season 5 of Overwatch League and Jake, like an XQC figure came up and like Jake was there to mentor him, like do you think that this would have happened? Probably not. Or like it would have been nipped in the bud much quicker. I think that it's important.
It's definitely something Dallas lacked. You know, when you think back to stuff like in the preseason when Nomi was like yelling at Baby Bay or whoever it was, I can't remember, to like unbind their macro because you're doing it at an inappropriate time, and like just to keep people centered on the goal and the plan, and to shut out the external stuff is really, really important. And it's just something that definitely wasn't present here. Clearly within the Dallas organization, and you know, it's kind of annoying to like have to need that, because you'd like to think you shouldn't need that,
right?
But,
you'd like to think that a bunch of 21-year-olds would be able to like run themselves, but
I mean, to just do my little like told you so dance here
for a
minute,
sure,
like this was super predictable to the point where I predicted it and told him and said it was going to happen when they signed him. I said, I don't get this. It's such a risk. I just see him being a toxic presence on the team and just detracting and being a constant, circus on the sidelines that they don't need. And I never anticipated I would be this phenomenally right in that analysis, that it would have happened so immediately and so quickly. Even I didn't anticipate that.
He played 6 games?
I
Like
mean,
total,
he didn't
or
even
6
start
maps
for a
total?
good portion
Yeah.
of them. Yeah, it was not much.
It
that's
said it
for
in the
sure.
press release, but it was like a shockingly low number. And like, he was never bad. Like
No.
none of this is related to his play whatsoever.
No.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's the shame of it too,
Right.
is he could have been a real stabilizing presence to this team if he could have just kept a level head on his shoulders. It's just one of those things where like it almost becomes validation to him when he boots up his stream and everybody is like, "Oh, you're being mistreated," and all these things, and it becomes this pity party. And I just felt like he bought into it. And after he came back,
Right.
he was like looking for the line so that he could dance on it instead of like learning his lesson and just not looking.
Right.
Like, if you seek out the line and try to put your toes on it but not
Right.
cross it, like that, that's crossing the line in and of itself. Like that's
Right.
just going to make this happen.
Exactly. Especially when like you've crossed it before. Like, I mean, we talked, I think, I don't remember where we mentioned it. It might've been just in like, we talked about it, but like certain things like in and of themselves, maybe not terrible or not necessarily ban worthy or whatever, but like compiled, like once you get to a certain point, like every little thing is like it's added on top of what you've already done, and leads to more egregious actions to be taken. But I wanted to move it a little bit further away, or move it, the conversation in regards to XQC kind of away from the controversy, because that's been talked about ad nauseum, and there's really nothing of value more to be talked about it here, at least. But talked about what Custa's response was to this, and I thought this was very interesting as well. And the TLDR of his response from his stream was that like didn't have anything against XQC as a person. You know, when he was there, he was a perfectly fine player and worked with the team to help the team, but like it's hard to build a team around a player when he doesn't play and he can't play and he's not there. So he was like, you know, XQC was a fine person, but as a teammate, like he wasn't a great teammate, or like, I think he said it a little bit more politically, like we weren't able to get there as teammates, because he literally was not a teammate for such a long time. He
wasn't allowed to be there for a good portion of it. And
yeah.
I'm going to lean on a sports cliche a little bit here, and it's one I think I've said on the show in the past. But you know, with these players, your best ability is availability, and if you're not there to be able and eligible to be put into the lineup, you don't help your team. And when you prove literally time and time again to not be a reliable teammate, in the sense that your actions will get you suspended and taken away, then no matter how good you are not capable of helping an organization or a franchise in this case. So just an unfortunate circumstance for the rest of the players.
Right.
I do feel very much so like XQC got what he paid for. I mean, right? Like you're responsible for your own actions and your own words. And I don't feel bad for the kid, other than, you know, just had an opportunity and by his own volition lost it. I mean, it's hard not to feel a little bad for him, but he definitely, like I said, got what he paid for. You know, he made the mistakes, and now he's got to pay for them. That's just the reality of it. The door remains open for him to come back into the league if a team's willing to take him. I can't imagine that's going to be the case. He would have to honestly become a completely different person on his stream, and really show that in a public manner. He knows how to conduct himself, and he would just have to start behaving like he was an Overwatch League player for a long, extended period of time before I think anybody'd be willing to bring him back in. But for the time being, at least, it looks like it's going to be OGE's job once he's here and eligible. And for what it's worth, I've seen him on player streams. You know, he appears to be in North America. Whether his visa's been accepted, I mean, you know what I mean? We don't know. So we'll see when and if and when they're able to bring him into, not if, I believe he's officially signed. So it's just a matter of when they're able to get him in here, I think, before he takes over that job, and we'll see what kind of impact it's able to make. But I think for the time being, at least, there's a little bit more news on Dallas Fuel in the speculation and gossip section of the show. So we'll talk more about that soon. But for the time being, the XQC chapter is over, and I think the league's better for it. I think the Dallas Fuel are better for it. I think XQC is better for it. I just think it was the thing that needed to happen.
Yeah, I think, the last two things I'll say in kind of piggybacking off the Custa thing is like your potential as a player is worth literally zero. It does not matter how good you could be if you're not on the stage. And then the other thing is like we're still seeing the ripple effect of like the XQC community and like all that garbage that goes along with it. So it's not good for Overwatch League for that to be around, is what I'll say about that. And if you're perpetuating it, you are a literal idiot. So that's what I'll say about that. Stance taken by me. Don't care. You're making everyone involved in Overwatch League look bad. So
Yourself more than anyone else, too.
For sure, but by proxy, it affects us all. But let's move on to some other news that's not XQC or Dallas related. Architect. So this is kind of like a two-part, like part of it is confirmed, part of it's unconfirmed, but like soft confirmed. So the confirmed part is that Architect, the player that we've been talking about for a while, has signed to a team. This comes from his personal Twitter. He is signed to an Overwatch League team. The team has not been confirmed, but it is
tomorrow
going to be confirmed.
/ today if you're listening in podcast land.
Right. Slasher reported that it was to the San Francisco Shock. So take that for what it's worth.
The Korean leak that came out that we've mentioned,
Right.
but haven't given you all the details of, also listed Architect to San Francisco. It's
Yeah.
San Francisco.
It's
More
more
than
than
the
likely
official
San
word on
Francisco.
it, though. But it's San Francisco.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, it's going to be a great thing, I think, for the Shock, because it's apparent. Baby Bay's a very talented player.
Mhm.
He's done well, but the team's just not winning right now. And
Mhm.
when you talk about bringing in a guy like Architect, he's got that tool in his belt that none of the current players kind of do, right? We've talked about them from the beginning as the team with 7 Tracer mains,
Right.
and just nonstop mono hit scan on their team, and now they're bringing an Architect who's arguably one of the best Genjis in the world.
Yeah.
He's on a short list of people, I would say, whose Junkrat is on a level with Jake's.
Yeah.
He is a very, very high skill projectile DPS player, and he should add an element to the San Francisco Shock that they haven't had yet. So hopefully when you combine that with the theoretical, though Dante's been playing so well, I'll believe it when I see it, upgrade that you get from Sinatra coming in there. You'll get Super to come in over Nevix, which will free Nevix up to go back to his flexible role where he was probably the best Genji on the team, but somebody had to play Diva because you have to have a Diva. So they're finally starting to take shape into the form that they want to be in. So they've been playing the long game this whole time. You don't sign the players you did with the birthdays that they had without accepting, it was an acceptable loss for them these first 2 stages, essentially. They're, like I said, they're playing the long game, and it's starting to come to fruition. So if you're a San Francisco fan, you can pull a Zappos and unzip your coat and reveal the jersey, because now's about the time. It's going to be one more week before Sinatra can join. We'll see if he comes in for week 5 immediately. And then a week after that, as stage 3 starts, you should have Super ready to go. So now's the time, Shock fans. Come out of the woodworks.
Yeah, it's definitely what I'm most interested to see is how if they can top the Zappos reveal, or if they try to. I don't want it to just be like, oh well, they're here now. It's like I want there to be more behind the scenes stuff. And like Shock has done some dumb stuff, like dumb in a good way, not dumb in a bad way, like social media stuff. And I want them to do something cool or funny, but I don't know. But we're gonna move on to a section that we've kind of ignored / pushed off in the past, but I figured we have so much going on right now, and the track record for what's being reported has been good enough that as long as we talk about what it is, we can say. So this is going to be a speculation / gossip or rumor mill sort of thing. So all the stuff we're going to be talking about has the caveat of it is unconfirmed. So if you try to tell us that we told you that this was confirmed, I'm going to point back to this clip right here and say I said that it is not confirmed. So joke's on you. But we did get another Slasher report, or Slasher speculation. I guess it's technically a report, but it's an unconfirmed report for us at least. That says that Coco and Taimu there's talk of one and or both of them getting released / sold. Which is definitely an interesting talk. It's definitely interesting talk if it's true for Dallas to be having. We kind of talked about this possibility on Foul Play yesterday with like, let's just reset, let's just blow up Dallas, let's blow up the Envious lineup. And
A. Smith, as the resident Dallas Fuel fan, requested it, said, "Kill it. It's done. Like let's move on. Let's live in the future.
Burn it.
And start the recovery process." And I don't know how I feel about getting rid of both of these players in particular, because then you don't really have a backup for tank. But I do think. I never thought moving Taimu to main tank was good for him, good for the team, good for anybody involved. Yet they seem to really want to do it. And if there's already talk of releasing or selling him off, I think that just adds to it now, right? Like, how long have you spent not playing hit scan to get your aim back so that you can go join another team? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me that he would be moving, and then now you're talking about getting rid of him because he's not high skill enough at the role that you just asked him to pick up a minute ago. It's like when people are surprised Jake's not the best tracer in the world yet and able to fight Sabiolbi. It's like, well, of course not. Sabiolbi's been playing the hero since release. Jake picked it up a month ago. It just wouldn't make any sense for him to be on the same level. So personally, if they're going to keep one of them, I do hope it's Taimu. Coco doesn't seem to have the flexibility that you kind of want from your main tank player, so that you can have, because what are you going to do if your triple tank comp or your death ball comp isn't working, right? You're probably going to want to go to dive and try that. And that's not a tool that Coco really has at the moment. So as great as he is at the Reinhardt, he's a pretty solid Reinhardt player. And there's a lot of people that really like the guy. I just don't know that he's the right option for this team. I think he might be better suited on somebody else's bench, because they do need a bit of a reset here. And they don't need 3 main tank players. So it definitely makes sense to me to move some on. I almost want them to just go farther with it, right? Like, stop transitioning Siegel. Like, just, if you're not going to use him, cut him loose, let him go, try to find somewhere. Somebody will take that guy because of how, there's teams not doing great that could just plug him in and like at least have fans that are interested in watching because they're Siegel fans. And so I don't know, go farther with this, blow it up. Like, if you're going to get rid of Kai at the end of the season, do it now. Don't wait. Get these people in before you're competing with new franchises that are expanding the league and coming in and trying to compete and hire with them. I would go get your guy now. If they're keeping him, though, keep him, obviously. But this is a classic case of a team that was a massive disappointment. And at the point when you can't really hold on to that hope of a turnaround anymore, you start making changes. You bring in your replacements so that you can get them up to speed and get them a part of your system now while you still can. So I think this is all expected conversation. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if it spreads farther and they get rid of more core envious players, because when you're down in the standings and it looks bad and you're losing to like San Francisco's and Florida's and things like that, and they say like, this was their get right week. We called it that last week.
And
when you 0-2 your get right week, you got wronged, like it has gone the wrong direction, and that is the time to do it. So go farther. You don't have to care who you make better by giving them Chipsogen or whoever else you're gonna move. You need to make changes. You need to get the team used to playing the dive composition. We saw a little bit more Rascal this week. I hope they continue to show us even more Rascal in the coming weeks. So this is just a case of you need to find out what you have in your players that are on your bench, right? To know if you want to keep them around. But that means playing them, and just bring in new people. Once you're sure you're done with somebody, like otherwise you're going to be stuck with them for 2 stages coming up after this. And
because you can't even shop them after
it's the first year. Your fans aren't entrenched yet. They're not like you can lose them. So you have to start showing them something. Give them, by the end of the season, they need some form of turnaround in order, I think, to not lose a good chunk of fans.
I think I think I agree. Like they should just, like, we saw, like I I get it. Like Envious was the best team before, or arguably the best team before. They've had the longest winning streak of any team in Overwatch history, and they will likely have that forever. It's probably never going to happen again. That type of domination. But like, it doesn't matter, guys. Like, I almost would have been like after. Well, it's easy to say it now, but like after week 1, like, hey guys, what happened? It's like, well, we can't just go in and dumpster like random Gosu Gamers Weekly people like we used to. It's like, okay, well, when are you gonna get better? It's like, look at these trophies we have, and we've got Seagull and this XQC thing's going on. Don't look at our play. It's like, it's all been bad for them. There's been like, has there been anything good that's happened for Dallas since Overwatch League has started? Like, has there been a single like positive thing that's happened for them?
They beat the Gladiators twice in a row, but I mean, that would involve their first week with Fissure and things like that, and it wasn't even at the time considered a crazy accomplishment or anything like that. So I mean, no positives.
There's
really,
nothing
honestly.
positive about it. And like, people, like, I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but like, people keep defending Kai. It's like, well, it's not Kai's fault. It's like, in a way it is though, right? Like
100%.
like, the team being a complete mess is part his fault. Like, is it 100% his fault? No. Is it
It never
his
is,
fault
but it's the coach's job to take the blame on that situation.
Right.
Like, I can't even imagine what would happen to an NFL coach if they went out there and tweeted like, I can't believe the negativity I'm seeing. So what if we're losing horribly? Like, you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, of course we
like,
don't. But what are we supposed to do? Take your
we know
word
what's
for
happening
it?
on the stage, and we know that's unacceptable, and we know that's your job. So
do we take your word for it?
Watching that whole thing unfold was funny to me. And listen, I don't know what it is. It could be that Hastro's very, very hands-on in the planning and everything like that. But guess what? The Dallas Cowboys coach still gets fired when that team's not doing well.
Right.
Hastro's not going to fire himself. At the end of the day,
exactly.
You took the job knowing who Hastro was because you've been with that organization for a while now. You knew the level of involvement he was going to want to have. You knew as much as, if not more than anybody else outside of Hastro and the players, right? Like they're just tied, because they were just as in the organization as you. You knew what you were getting into. You signed on to coach that team. As somebody that does coaching, I don't try to pass the buck to anybody or anything under any circumstances when my team's performing well. I take it personally. I view it as I'm 1/7, or whatever, if not more so, responsible. Like, just as much me as any of the players, anything going on. It's your job to manage it, be out in front. And listen, we're in the middle of the Houston Outlaws problems right now, which we'll talk about in a little while too. And it's, they're transparent. They do press conferences when they lose 4-0 to teams that they should beat, and they talk about why. And this is, the preparation and all these things. And listen, even if they're lip service and they're just telling me what I want to hear, I feel better as a fan hearing it. So
I was going to say, like, there's two, like, okay, maybe it's not 100% your fault, but saying like, oh guys, I can't believe I'm going to go to the blame. Like, how can you think that the like, that response is way worse than, hey, I'm taking blame as the coach here. We're working hard to get the team back together. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing to make strides forward in the upcoming stages of Overwatch League. Like, that response means nothing. But it makes you look better and makes it like it is exactly that, lip service to the fans of like, hey, I'm taking responsibility for this. Like, hey,
what's the first step to solving a problem? Admitting there is one, not blaming the fans for being angry that you're losing. Like, that's the fans' job. The fans are doing their job.
Right.
They're putting heat on the team when they lose. That's literally what they're supposed to do. So let's do yours, everybody. Like, let's not skirt that. You guys, I haven't been getting your job done across the organization, and there's no reason to be defensive. You have no defense. You have a horrible record and a horrible spot in the standings. That's your only defenses. And like, you can point to stats or point to reasons why it's going to get better. Please point to them, because all I see is you panicking and selling and dropping people and all these things. And like, here's
the other thing. Like, if your defense is, well, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Let's see it. Give us something. Like if you're just like, oh well, we'll take my word for it. I'm not an idiot. It's like, hold on. Why do I believe you again? Like, no, it's own up to it, take the blame, or show us more. Like it's what's going to happen. It's what's going to happen. Like I get like as a person and like as an intellectual, I understand that it is not 100% the coach's fault when a team loses, but it's not 0%. That's for sure. And it's seeming like they're trying to deflect it a little bit, but that was more about that than I thought I was going to talk about. Let's move on to some more speculation and gossip that has nothing to do with Dallas here. We got another slasher report that Moth, a support player from the Toronto esports, aka Boston Uprising Academy team, as well as Cho Hyo Bin, I butchered that for sure, who's a flex player from X6 Gaming, have signed to the San Francisco Shock, which just really makes me wonder what in the world is IDQT doing? What is he like? Is he ever going to see the stage? No. Period. For any team ever in Overwatch League?
Yes, because he's probably just too good not to. And as the league expands, but not with San Francisco, he's not playing there.
No, I agree with you there. It's just it is interesting to see like San Francisco brought. They were the first team to announce. They did all this stuff and blah 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 blah, and like they're not good, and they are. I mean, if you look at like what the team is going to look like in season 2 versus season 1, it's probably going to be a completely different landscape of a team, different core of a team, different everything.
Yeah, it's at least a good portion of them will be different. Although I will say I do think the Choi Hoi Bin, which I also have butchered now, just to solidarity with you, so that you're not alone. This is a player that I don't personally know a ton about, other than just his general hero pool. I mean, he's a very solid off tank player. He's somebody talked about like one of the better players on X6 Gaming's roster. So I mean, he's clearly coming in my mind to be a backup or maybe a competitor for Super's job. But yeah, it's just giving them the depth in the right places now, which makes me think we're going to see some form of dropping of players potentially. I haven't looked at their roster. I always feel like they're like an 11-man roster, and then they just like have added 4 players and haven't had to drop anybody. So they're just not quite as deep, I guess, as I thought. And they're just doing what kind of everybody either should be doing or is doing, and that's just getting themselves to 12. And this is a player that is going to bring a different style of play to them, right? Bringing in a couple of Koreans is only going to add different levels of strategizing and things like that. So, we could even, as chat saying, Woojin, I mean, Super in the past has been a main tank. And I guess he's saying in interviews he's practicing that again. So Nomi's been a bit of an iffy player for them recently. So we could theoretically see, a position change there. And then Choi is going to be the off tank, or maybe Nevix keeps it. I don't know. But yeah, things are going to be changing significantly in San Francisco, and but I do think this is predominantly about getting them to 12 and kind of getting things spread out a little bit instead of being so hit scan heavy.
Makes sense. Definitely makes sense there. And the last, this one's a real stretch, but I figured I'd put it in there. Piece of speculation / gossip. This is closer to gossip than anything. This was a clip from the Zachary from Fusion University, right? He plays for FU, I think.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
On the spot. No, I'm less confident.
I'm pretty sure. Regardless, professional level player Zachary on his stream said basically that Blizzard told the pro players that they're going to be nerfing Sombra from what she is on live right now. Basically everything I've heard casually from different pro players on streams and whatnot are saying Sombra is not in a good place, to put it lightly, broken, OP, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard the full swath of it, and apparently Blizzard is looking into it.
I keep hearing it too. I keep not seeing it, right? Like when I've tuned into contenders, I've not seen it look overpowered. I believe it's annoying to get hacked that often, but I'm still not quite sold on
to get hacked that often and to have like the infrasight basically for Sombra, but and to shut down more. Like there's a lot of reasons that they think it's overpowered, but I think what we've seen, and obviously Thorne and Kyle on Blackwatch Report have a better insight into this, but I think they were talking on the Contenders broadcast that a lot of teams have just like not practiced the Sombra. They've just been like, it's almost like they've overthought it, or like, oh, well, everyone thinks it's Sombra's OP, so I'm not even going to practice it because she's going to get nerfed. But then like you need to play your match, and they're trying to play it without having practiced it, and it's not as good. And I don't think it's universally good either. I also don't think it's probably been scrimmed enough appropriately that
time and time again, and the esports players have been almost more guilty of it than anybody else. Way overreacting to buffs and nerfs of some of these heroes. Yep. The number of times throughout beta we saw McCree catch a nerf, and everybody's like, he's completely unplayable, and then like
it's like he's actually just broken.
Or somebody pulls it out and it's pow, 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 and everybody's dying. And you know, I remember R-Tier did it the one day, like he just randomly switched to McCree on Hollywood in the middle of a Gosu Gamers weekly, and then from that match onward it was perma McCree again until he got another nerf. And then it happened all over again.
The number of times McCree has gone from unplayable to overpowered without anything actually changing is at least 3 times. So definitely, I mean, it's the same thing we see in like Magic the Gathering too, is like people like read one thing or like hear one thing from the pro players, and they don't like, they just take it as fact, and it's not actually tested out as much as it should be. And you get this like, just gets
it takes time to learn to play against these changes, and that's what I don't think they're giving enough time for. So I don't know, you need to like when a hero gets nerfed, you need to learn to play them the new way. When they get buffed, you more or less need to learn to play against them in order to really know where they are in the meta. So we'll see. Sombra, though, it sounds like is
right, and at a high level and on the map pools and et cetera, et cetera. But let's move on, and we are going to do some...
It's tournament talk.
Do some tournament talk. I didn't record the audio match ticker because I forgot. So I'm just going to do it live, but I do have the music ready, so I'm just going to read it off, and then we're going to talk about some key points from the ticker. So we had Seoul Dynasty 3-1 versus the Shanghai Dragons on Wednesday. San Francisco Shock 3-0, Dallas Fuel, and Los Angeles Valiant beat LA Gladiators beat LA Valiant 4-0. That was the talking point. This sounds like it's way too loud. But this is
so many messages. You know, just shut the music off right away.
Yeah, I'm going without the music. That was a bad idea. I wanted to do the music because the music is cool, and
it is.
I'll do it next week. Sorry for those of you who were deafened by that, myself included. On Thursday, Seoul Dynasty beat Philly 3-1. Valiant beat Houston Outlaws 4-0, and Boston Uprising beat Shanghai Dragons 4-0. Friday, we saw London Spitfire beat Boston Uprising 4-0. NYXL beat Philly 3-1. I've got a note about that when we come back. And Houston Outlaws beat Florida Mayhem 3-2. Last day of the week on Saturday, LA Gladiators beat London Spitfire 3-1. Huh? NYXL steamroll San Francisco Shock 4-0, and Florida Mayhem win against Dallas Fuel 3-2. So
big week,
big and kind of crazy week.
Yeah, I said, I think again, and it happened in stage 1, the one where I felt really confident about my picks, and I'm like, this week feels solved to me. Like even the teams that were hard to pin down, like Dallas,
and
they had their
throwing
right
again.
Week. Yeah, well, I mean, you are going to continue to throw because it accidentally works out for you every now and then. But you will, you'll continue to throw until it's too late, and you can't learn your lesson, and you just lose.
Yeah,
but I will enjoy that, so that's fine.
Right. So I mean, the big thing here, I think, well, there's a couple of big things, but LA Gladiators are a real team now. Did they Freaky Friday with with Houston Outlaws?
No, I don't think so. Honestly, I just think, I mean, it's a completely different scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like they're adding players, and so far it's just been one player, right? And it's just meant a world of difference for this team. But honestly, I've not been quiet about my enjoying about my enjoyment of the play style, the players on the Los Angeles Gladiators. I've felt like they've been close most of this time, just not really able to put it together. And I've been trying to put my finger on exactly why, and not been, too entirely successful in that regard. But nonetheless, they're just a really well put together team right now. They get to play this really aggressive dive. They're almost forced into it because of how new Fissure is, that they just have to get like suicidal with their aggression, just go really, really deep. But it's working for them so far. So, there's no complaints there, but we did see them, lose to Dallas a couple weeks ago in back-to-back weeks. So I do think there's a little bit of a vulnerability to them, but I think you need to be built a certain way. And spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about that in a little bit when we preview the matches, because I do think they've got a tough go this week in at least one of their matches. I'm blanking on the other one off the top of my head. But yeah, no, they're just a really well put together team. They've got the underrated support core of the not so small Goose, and obviously Shaz is a really high impact player. We've talked about him as being potentially among the more underrated support players in the league, and he's really showing that. And so it's been just a treat to watch. In all honesty, I've really enjoyed getting to watch the Gladiators improve and level up. They are so far the surprise of stage 2 for sure, and they're just gelling more as a team as they get Fissure acclimated. So I'm really excited. Hydration has just had some huge plays, and he's somebody that I've liked, but I just haven't been 100% sold on him. And it's hard not to really, really buy in now, as the front line is solidified, and they're said to be adding Void, and we've seen time and time again how they're the best example of it, how tank play matters and wins you games. And if they're able to make a significant improvement over their off tank by bringing in Void, they could get really, really scary really quickly. Because even Asher's had a rough go of it so far this season, but he was just on fire this weekend.
Right.
So if they can maintain that level and keep that consistency, they will be a terrifying team going forward. I think just Fissure is such a good player that he makes that big of a difference, and London has officially created a monster now. And one that them as well as the rest of the league has to deal with, as they even fell to him immediately the first time they had to face him.
Right. It's always nice to see the traded player get the little revenge for getting traded. But yeah, Gladiators are almost they almost seem like the Boston Uprising of this stage, like stage 1 Boston Uprising. Like, it took a little while, but they eventually, Boston Uprising became a team to be reckoned with in stage 1, and were in the playoff talk. They had a winning in essentially for the playoffs for stage 1. So I think Gladiators are. I'd have to look at the stage standings, but they're probably going to end up in a similar position depending on how they play out the rest of these last 2 weeks. But yeah, definitely going to be a nice show to watch for Gladiators. And like we talked about before, the shields up spam in the arena was it was insane. So
yeah, it makes it a lot easier to really enjoy watching them too, just because of how hype the crowd gets and everything like that. So
also that is certainly not a small Goose. But one thing I wanted to mention about Philly versus New York is that I won my bet against Tucker Roberts, aka the president of Philadelphia Fusion. So I am going to have an awesome, sweet pair of Philadelphia Fusion sneakers coming my way, hopefully, maybe, I don't know. According to the bet, that is the case. And apparently I'm being accused of giving food poisoning to Boombox that week, but Do you think I brought up Taco Bell so many times by coincidence? Just think about it. Think about it. But the other thing, obviously, which won't go unnoticed, is I don't know any other teams this week that doubled the number of wins they had, but Florida Mayhem sure did. So are they a real team now?
Well, they've been a real team since they paid $20 million to own a spot. No, I don't think the Mayhem are real, as the question states here. I think the Dallas Fuel are really bad, and that's what we saw. Listen, the match was close against Houston. We have to point that out. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I think the Florida Mayhem played a better game against Houston when they lost than they did against the Dallas Fuel when they were able to reverse sweep instead of being reverse swept. My theory about the Houston Outlaws match is not a secret. If you're anywhere near Discord, you know. And it's something I was saying while it was happening. So it's not even like after the fact, and I've been saying this for weeks too, is when Houston decides to put Clockwork out there, okay, and he plays, whether he does good or whether he does poorly, he's done good once. Okay, he's done, and he's done poorly like 3 or 4 times, and he's been okay a couple times. For what it's worth, he's much better on Hanamura, in my opinion, than he is on Volskaya. Although his one very, very good performance, I believe, was on Volskaya against Philadelphia. But with that said, they're having trouble. Like, he's just not being an active participant in the team. Like, you're playing Tracer in a pick composition with a Widowmaker and 2 dive tanks, and the dive tanks aren't being aggressive. They're hanging back at the choke point waiting, right, for your Widowmaker to get picks. So the Tracer's job in that scenario isn't to peel and hang out with your backline. That's what your 2 tanks are doing. They're standing back there defending your healers, waiting for the moment. So you get your Widowmaker out in a good sight line, and then you send your Tracer player around the back to flush them out into the open. You can click a couple heads, then you're up a player. You can get really aggressive on them. That's the way the pick composition has been run since I've been running it on my teams forever ago. It's not a super high level strategy. I don't know for sure that's what they were doing, but either Clockwork wasn't being aggressive enough, or 5 other members of the team weren't doing their jobs. I don't know which it was, but I have a hunch that it was one person playing wrong, doing the wrong thing instead of 5. And that's only a part of it here, right? And this is what's so frustrating as a Houston Outlaws fan, is this is a lesson we learned in stage 1. Stop messing with substitutes just for the sake of substituting. If people need a break, give them weeks off. Right? Don't give them maps off and screw up your synergy every single week. Because right now they come in, and odds are, so far, they've played poorly with their lineup. Whether you think it's Clockwork's fault or not, let's not even have that conversation anymore. They've played poorly in those opening maps with one exception. Okay? And sometimes they've won it against some lesser teams, but anyways, they go in, then they substitute into the second match. And so far when they've lost those Koth maps, it's been close. It's not been blowout wins. It's been 0.3, 99.99 right at the end. One play could have flipped it. And I don't know for sure that this is the case. Maybe Jake was super, super warmed up and just didn't get the play that he needed. But it's hard to shake the feeling that if he was warmed up and played the first map and he wasn't getting acclimated, that they would have found a way to make that one play, right? Like, he just gets the one visor, uses it at a better time, gets better positioning, and one encounter on Soldier, something like that, to give them the edge to be able to pull out that 1 point. And then against Florida, they come in, and once everybody is warmed up and they cleaned up. Even though Tavik was playing hands down his best match of Overwatch League so far. Same thing for Logic. Same thing for Swoosh. They had a phenomenal performance against the Houston Outlaws this past week. And it didn't even seem to drop off. Like, there was 2 maps there that Florida lost pretty handily in the last 3. And then Gibraltar was very, very close. But I mean, the DPS looked sharper. I'll say that in those bad matchups. Maybe not Swoosh, maybe not the support line, stuff like that. But I thought the DPS played well throughout the duration of all 5 maps. So to me, this is more about Houston being stubborn and wanting to continue to play Clockwork in these situations, and not trusting Jake's Tracer. And I get not trusting Jake's Tracer, but if he's your long-term answer there, or whoever your long-term answer there is, it's clearly not Clockwork, because you're only playing him on 1 map, right? Like, you're subbing him out. So that's more about like you're scrimming him on those maps or something like that. But learn your week one lesson over again and stop it. Just put your best players out there. It gives you the best chance to win. And that to me should be just the end of the story. But there's something going on where they want to incorporate him. They want to prove people wrong. I really don't know what it is. I can't tell you. I just know from the beginning, Flame has been very positive about Clockwork. He's kind of been the anti-death blow in this conversation. And it just, to me, there's no results. There's no stat that I've seen anything that supports the fact that he's of a similar level to Jake and Linkser, and you get the same performance as a team. Even if the stats individually were there, you can look at the team's performance as a whole and say they play better with their main six in there. And if you want to talk about adding somebody to play Tracer, I'll have that conversation. It's a fun conversation. Let's have it. But I don't think there's anybody on the bench. Buy Striker. Do it now. I don't think there's anybody on the bench that should be coming in to fix their problems. I think a lot of it is they seem like I don't want to say streaky team, but they seem like a very momentum-based team. And I think the substitutions are really hurting that. It's keeping them from getting into that rhythm and allowing them to just hit their stride and let them play their best. So yeah, I view this as more of a poor play from Houston in the first two maps than it was like Mayhem leveling up that much to be able to take them down. And then I think obviously, I mean, we know the state the Fuel are in. It was, I think, 100% Taimu on tank in that match, and that really limits their options and their compositions and things like that. So, sorry, Florida fans, for my Houston rant in the middle of your conversation about are you real or not. But you know, it's just to me, it was more a matter of what the other teams were doing wrong that gave them their window. But I will say, in stage 2 in this new meta, the Mayhem have been able to give us a peek into what they've been in the past. They've been able to get it together to an extent, and I think the new coaches are helping them because they were more of an immediate assistance to them than the players obviously were still waiting on. And it's only going to continue to get better. Are they real? No, not yet, but they're showing us that they have that potential, and they have a core that they can build off of. I just think they need to get some better main tank play going on, and maybe that's enough to fix what's going on with the supports. I really don't know, but they need to stabilize their DPS. If their DPS can play as well as they did in the Houston match, Florida would be a terrifying team for a lot of opponents in the league.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on Mayhem, or perhaps about losing to Mayhem and what it might feel like to lose to Mayhem?
You know, I can't even imagine, honestly. I feel for Dallas fans. I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose to them. Can't wrap my head around it. You know, I've never been in a position where I thought it was going to happen for me. So it's tough to know what they're going through as Dallas fans, but nonetheless,
to be half of the Mayhem's wins.
Good. To be half the Mayhem's wins, to be half of the Shanghai Dragons' map wins, things like that. Just stuff I can't fathom.
I know I certainly don't know what it's like to lose.
You definitely don't know what it's like. Yeah, that's true. And listen. Neither of our teams have ever lost.
I was going to say you're in the same boat as me. You have the same number of losses to Florida Mayhem that I do. That's for true. Sure. We're going to have Bob on the show sometime to talk to us about what it's like to lose to Florida Mayhem. But let's move on. And
let's break it down.
We are running very late, but we'll try to cruise through some of these matchups that maybe don't have a lot of talking points as quickly as we can. But on Wednesday, we've got Boston Uprising versus Dallas Fuel. We both are taking the Cowards 3-0 for Boston. 87% of the fans have Boston as the victor here. Anything to talk about here?
I mean, it's the internal turmoil versus the internal tire fire. So I'm going to give me the turmoil every time over the team that's already blown up.
Show me the team that's been good
to sell
before.
Things. And right. That's at least shown it.
In Overwatch League.
The curiosity here is, listen, if Gamzu doesn't play this week, I buy all in on Slasher's report that there's something going on.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the guy's got pneumonia or something, and you'd think they'd put out a more serious statement about his health. Apparently he's not in the country Gamzu is. I don't really know what's going on.
Well, I can see that because of I know for whatever reason the healthcare situation is weird for the players, I think, or it might be weird. So I don't know. but like
it could be, but I lean more towards there's something going
Sure.
on internally in Boston after not seeing Gamzu again this week and him not being in the country. It's just not a good look for Boston, and the timing of it could just be bad. That Slasher got wind of something that wasn't true at the right time. But I mean, it just doesn't.
It just hasn't been the case yet.
Yeah,
we're leaning
things
towards
seem to add up here.
Slasher.
So give me turmoil over tire fire.
Right. I mean, I literally just thought of this analogy, and I think it fits really well. Dallas Fuel was an amazing JV team, but now they're playing varsity, and that does not equate. And yeah, I'll take the team that's been a good varsity team, but it's not a good varsity team right now. I'll take that team over the JV team all day, and that is Boston. Man, Dallas Fuel as a JV team is 100% going to be the title of this episode. Man, we're going to get a lot of hate mail, and I can't wait for it. Next match is probably going to, like, this week of Overwatch League is peaking early, but this is probably going to be the match of the week, might even be the match of the stage. NYXL versus Seoul Dynasty. We both have a sheepish 3-2 victory for New York, and it's 65% in favor of New York, and that's probably might even be a little bit too high. It's tough. It's close. This is about as close to a 50-50, I think, as we've seen in a while.
Yeah, in my mind, this is brutal. I mean, New York's been that airtight team. They've got one loss. That's not because their main support player has been out. It's hard to imagine them losing, and at the same time, you've got Seoul just playing so phenomenally on this patch. They seem to be the team of stage 2. They have not lost yet in stage 2. New York has. Obviously, it was against London when Art was out. So this is, like you said, as close to a coin flip as I could draw up here. I made this decision because I said like a week ago that I'm just not going to pick against New York right now. Like, there's just no point until the playoffs.
You're not favored.
It's like
sure.
a choke issue.
Right.
Nobody can be favored against New York until they've proven they can beat them. So this is kind of the big test for Seoul here. You know, are they back to their old selves, at least in the standings or the power rankings, or are they still at the top of the middle? That's really the question. But until we see New York at full strength lose again, I just assume they're alone at the top of the heap. But if there's a team out there that's going to do it this stage, it will be this Seoul.
Yeah, I think Seoul definitely appears better. Their optics are better for this stage, but they've had a much weaker schedule than New York. And like, if Arc is in that first week, it's definitely a coin flip as to whether or not they win. It was a 3-2 loss to London. Like, it was still extremely close when they didn't have one of their best players playing there's a lot of arguments you can make to imagine New York as an undefeated team right now. And I think if both of these teams are undefeated right now, like, New York is clearly ahead. I don't think we're even having this conversation because the schedule, the strength of the schedule has been so much higher for New York. But it's going to be a good match one way or the other. I think New York has really kind of shown that they can, their coaching and their coaching staff has been able to prepare them for the specific matchups and have specific game strategies that they're running effectively. They're like, they have the right strategies lined up and they're running them phenomenally. And also Jonak can just pop off and it doesn't matter. No one is ready to play against that third DPS that's also their healer. So I don't know. I don't what I don't know about is I don't know that I buy in as at least as convincingly as you do to the schedule's been a lot easier for one over the other. I think it's just all boils down to, I think New York would have probably won 3-1 against London. Yeah.
Had Arc been there. I think they've played very kind of similar strength schedules, but I
mean, it depends, like, if you count Gladiators as a good team when they played them.
And it depends on when New York was going against Houston, we didn't know they were struggling yet, at least when we were having the conversation, right? Like, we got wind of it in the match before, but it didn't really start until New York kind of destroyed their confidence. I think Houston would have been fine to rebound from a reverse sweep. I don't think it happened to them in stage 1 and they rebounded fine. So I think it was like New York, that 4-0 against New York kind of broke their confidence a little bit. So you have to give them kind of full credit for that one. But I kind of want to go back and like look at Seoul versus Gladiators and give Seoul full credit for that one too, because that was the second week of Fissure. That was really when it started to happen, but yet they still got that 3-1 win. It was, so I mean, it's tough. I get your point.
All I'll
You've
say
got to
is
use
that
hindsight both directions to make
Seoul
it.
has played Dallas and Shanghai, where New York has played like Houston and I guess they both played Philly, but Boston and London. I don't know.
You're using Boston as a good team.
Well, no,
I went the
Boston,
other direction.
But also, I mean,
New York's
Boston
got Florida
too.
and San Francisco too. Like they've had their tough ones, they've had their hard ones, and now these both for both teams, this matchup's on another
that aren't these two teams to really make a difference.
Well, at least on their level, right? Because the on their level conversation is between the two of them right now for this stage,
right?
So this will tell us a ton.
That's fair. I mean, this is almost certainly like the winning in for first place for the stage playoffs.
I'm hyped. This is gonna be a good one.
Yeah, definitely. But let's move on. Yeah, the week is peaking early. We got Fusion versus Shanghai. I mean, there's nothing here, right? It's 4-0.
I don't care if bad Philly shows up. We've seen them bench their whole starting roster against the squad and still win. Yep. It was close. Hopefully they don't do so much benching of people this time around.
Right.
Give themselves at least a 2-0 win lead before they start subbing like crazy. I think teams need to start doing that more just to protect themselves, because I think it looks bad to like make swaps. Like you go down a map to Shanghai, you're going to be too proud to make the switch at the beginning, right? But then you're down 2-0 and then you got like one mistake left in you before it's just over, and that's too dangerous.
Yeah. So. For sure. And I mean, you're not going to necessarily have that luxury as much when the Shanghai additions come in. But then Thursday, we've got NYXL versus Shanghai. Again, this is going to be a dumpster. I've got my patented 5-0 for New York here.
Yep. I would take a 5-0 too if I didn't feel like I was stealing your meme, so I'll let you have it on.
What's interesting here is that when I was looking up the percentages, 99% of fans were in favor of Philly, but only 97% of fans are in favor of New York. So maybe that was off. Or maybe someone.
It's early in the week. It's a small sample, so yeah, it could be. There's tiny errors too. Like he updates the things from time to time. So just kind of take them as ballpark figures is what I'm getting from these.
Sure, it's basically 100% against Shanghai for sure. Moving on, we've got Florida Mayhem versus LA Valiant. You've got Valiant here at 3-0, and I'm picking my boys from Mickey D's.
Yeah, you hate being in the top 10 in the pick 'em. That's fine.
I do. I seriously do. Why? I'm back in the top 8. You scrubs, do better.
I mean, you're just like picking the absurd matches, and then they're accidentally going your way.
Yep.
And that's not going to continue. That's not going to continue. So keep it up by all means.
I'm going to get another 500 points, and people are going to be so mad.
I'll let you take this one, because the only thing interesting to me with how well Valiant's playing this stage is what role does Zappas play? That's what I want to know, because he's so flexible. I could see him playing.
Well, okay, there's a couple of things. Valiant got dumpstered by Gladiators. Now, granted, Gladiators are much better than we expected them to be.
Also, wasn't dumpstered, but okay.
It was 4-0.
Nope.
This last week?
3-1.
What? No.
Yeah.
No.
We'll wait.
No, it's 4-0.
Oh, no, you're right. Okay, it was the London match that was 3-1.
I was going to say, Gladiators won 4-0 against LA Valiant.
My bad there.
So they got dumpstered. Don't care what anyone says. They got dumpstered. And Florida, I disagree. They are a real team. And also they're getting Zappas. There's too many pluses on the side of Florida and a non-zero number of minuses for Valiant. I'm picking here. I would not consider this a flip of the week, although... No, I don't. I can't in good confidence. I can't in good conscience make this a flip of the week, but I'm flipping it. So if you want to be this is the crackpot Blevins flip, not the flip of the week. But besides that, there's really not much more to talk about. It is what it is. But moving on, we've got Houston Outlaws versus LA Gladiators. This one is
This one has match of the week written all over it. If it wasn't for that darn New York Soul matchup, this would be matchup of the week.
Yeah, this is going to be a slobber knocker, and this is a placement match for both teams for sure.
Yeah, as we're kind of reassessing their positions in the power ranks and where they stand for the stage, this is a case, something we've seen before, where a team on the decline is meeting a team on the incline, and they're somewhere in the middle, and we don't really know, so we've got to figure it out. And for what it's worth, a lot of Houston's problems this stage have been map related, right? Like they're awful on Route 66. And they might be pretty bad on Hollywood. We don't know. The stages where they've been rough on those maps play very similarly to me. So I think that might be part of it. And I'm going to take this one 3-2 in favor of Houston. I will say this, it's incredibly close. I'm not very confident in that selection. The reason I'm doing it is because, we've got Volskaya, which makes me nervous because I think they're going to continue to be stubborn and play clockwork. And then we're going to have the issue of, are they warmed up? What's going on for Li Jiang Tower? Also, it's harder to play an anti-dive style on King of the Hill. You almost just have to dive. So I could see this going up 2-0 for the LA Gladiators here. I could also see it being 1-1 at this point. I don't know. But then the reason I think Houston has a very real chance at this one is that map 3 is Kings Row and map 4 is Gibraltar. And those are two maps they've been very, very strong on so far this stage. Had really, really good performances there. So I think this is going to be a 5-map set, and it's going to be, I've kind of got it as like a coin flip in who goes into the tiebreak. I don't have full map win percentages for the Gladiators and Houston to know for sure and line up, Kings Row against each other. I just know Houston has always come out on top on Kings Row so far. They've looked either really, really strong or clutched out, close matchups.
It wasn't, they didn't win against New York.
On what?
On Kings Row.
Don't think they played on Kings Row against New York. I could be wrong, though.
I think that they definitely did because there was that Libero on Hanzo match that was against Houston.
Well, either way, I'm not going to fault them for losing to that particular team on even a good map for them.
It was definitely close.
Yeah, because it was part of the reason why that was like one of the closest 4-0s they called it. It was on the back of it was a 6-5 score on Kings Row there. So clearly that was a bit of a knockdown drag out and a lot of fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to that. It's to me it's a slight edge. So far Houston's been pretty good on that tiebreak map. They've been there a good amount. So even when they've lost it, it's been super, super close. It's gonna be, I don't know, honestly, this one could easily go either direction. This one should be like 50% either way for the fans.
59 in favor of Gladiators, surprisingly enough.
The one thing I will say is this could easily go to a 3-1 in Houston's favor if they don't use the substitution goofiness at the beginning. And the reason I say that is because we've talked about already this episode how the Gladiators have a very aggressive dive style right now. They're just jumping in and following them and going off. And Houston plays that anti-dive, that sit back and let you come to me and just wreck you when you get here style that allowed the Gladiators to get beat by the Dallas Fuel, who play the same style, admittedly much worse. But they do play, that same style. I think that's going to favor Houston a little bit. Like if Houston was a dive team as good as they've been, whatever, and this was dive and they were dropping, I would have this one as a Gladiators 3-0 probably, like you've picked it here. But just because of the different styles, I do think Houston matches up better against this team than most teams. For what it's worth, I thought that about Boston, and then that went to a 3-2 and it was really close. So who knows? This doesn't, have to be close. This could be a lopsided Gladiators win, but if Houston is a streaky momentum-based team, they came out strong at the end of that match. They reverse swept, and that gives you a boost, I think. So going into this one, I do think Houston, despite their troubles, has a chance to, I'm going to use the foul play term, douse the flames that are the LA Gladiators right now, because they're definitely on fire.
Yeah, honestly, if it was more than a 59% in favor of Gladiators, if it was more than a 59% in favor of either team, I would call this a flip of the week. But really, this is more just a coin flip, and you're not going to be too bad picking either team. I think it's going to be really close, and like you said, it's not super easy to tell.
Either way you go with it, you might want to take the Cowards 3-0
Right.
just for the sake of the points.
Exactly.
It's so close. I don't know. I'm going with 3-2 when I call it here, but
3-3 and at least save like at least get yourself 50 points. That's the true Cowards.
I don't think it will let you pick.
No, it does.
That,
It does.
Oh, does it?
It actually does. Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
You can do it. It is weird, but you can do it. And it might be a chance to do it, though I probably wouldn't. I don't know. But moving on, we've got LA Gladiators versus Florida Mayhem on Friday. 94% in favor of Gladiators. We're both picking the Cowards 3-0 for Gladiators. Again, like depending on the matchup result against Houston, like we might really see what Gladiators is. Also, I mean, depending on what, like if Florida Mayhem beats Valiant, all of a sudden, this could be a match. But no, I think at worst it's a 3-1 for Gladiators here, which is why I'm picking the Cowards way out. But it very easily could be a 4-0.
Florida's been beaten up by aggressive dive teams plenty, so we don't have that stylistic thing like I have with Houston to say that might give them an edge. The reason I'm going with a 3-0 instead of a 4-0 here, there's only one reason, and that's the Gladiators close Thursday night, open Friday. They don't have the depth to split their roster and play the B team against Florida and be prepared and be rested and all that stuff.
Right.
So
could be.
I'm not supremely confident that that Florida doesn't find a way to win a map here. If the DPS plays as well as they did against Houston, they can compete here.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect.
Yeah. Following that up, we've got London Spitfire versus San Francisco Shock. You've got London 4-0. I'm taking a Cowards 3-0 here, and I'll explain that in a second. And fans, 94% are in favor of London. Look, London has not looked great this stage, and I think they can drop a map to anyone, including a team like the San Francisco Shock. So I'm not confident enough in the 4-0 here from London.
London A teams looked great. London B team maybe not so much. They need to stop playing this GC Busan roster. Their players just basically like almost had a coup to kick their coach out, if what we've heard can be believed.
Right.
So I am a little worried there about their decision-making tree and what's going on. You don't have to like your coach. If any players are listening right now, like, you don't have to like your coach. To want your coach fired after winning the Stage 1 championship is incredibly short-sighted. For the organization to listen to them and do it is lunacy.
Think about who's more likely to get fired in that situation.
Right. I mean,
Spoiler alert, it's you, player.
The whole thing is just, like I said, it's lunacy over there in London right now. And again, this is kind of one of those told you so moments, but I did say if there was one team that was going to mismanage themselves out of the playoffs or something like that among these Koreans, they were the ones
a long time ago.
Yeah, likely candidates to do it. And I just don't understand how you can see such a stark difference. Like against the Gladiators, right? Like they're going against the tank they traded over there. And they didn't even give them the respect to start their A team. And then when they go down 2-0, they switch. They show it. They say, oops, like this was clearly an A team, B team scenario.
Right.
We didn't think we needed the A team to play against these guys. We were wrong. But now your A team hasn't been scrimming those maps all week and all these different things. So it should be, you should be switching when you're desperate because you're losing to somebody you don't think you should lose to, right? But they have a beat on whatever your main roster's doing, so you switch it in the hopes that just a completely different look throws them off and lets you get the leverage back. London's not a team handling substitutions well right now. I know it's aggravating. I carry him, who's like about the entirety of their fan base in our Discord.
It's all sorts of messed up around there. Like the management of it, just getting rid of Bishop, or I don't remember what the report said, if he stepped down or if it was mutual or if he was removed or etc. But
the reports from Slasher, I believe it was that it was like the players requested it.
Gotcha.
And didn't
regardless of what the actual where it came from, it's not good for the org. And the team
and
in general.
Listen, we're just talking about the outside chance that the Shock have, but in reality, it looks like we both think they're still a week away when they get Sinatra, maybe 2 weeks away when they get Super, maybe when they're able to bring in Architect. That's when we're going to start to see something from this team. I think they could be real fun to watch in Stage 3 or Stage 4. Just we're not there yet, San Francisco. So sorry, it's going to be a rough go.
Right, it's against most other teams in the league, the conversation is different, but Shock might be able to steal one map, maybe. But moving on, we've got LA Valiant versus Boston Uprising. We've both got Valiant here 3-0. 73% of fans are in favor of Valiant. Any thoughts on this one?
Boston's rebounding a little bit from what we saw in the early portion of the stage, but not like we saw in stage one. I think they're still struggling against the top tier teams. We don't know what's going on with the Gamzu main tank situation, so we could be seeing Kalios on main tank again. I'm not sure that's a bad thing for the team, honestly, because I think Gamzu was there for the beginning troubles in stage two. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on here, but the Valiant are just playing really, really good Overwatch right now on this patch, on these maps, and I don't see a struggling team. A team with issues right now isn't who I would pick to go against them and win. And that's, I think we saw it happen with Houston, right? Like Houston had issues going into that match, and I think we all still kind of gave Houston enough credit to get there, but when the Valiant are playing well, you can't have all these question marks and all these issues and still get away with it. So
true. Then we have potentially a third possible match of the week on any other week besides this one in Seoul Dynasty versus London Spitfire. We've both got Seoul here 3-0. The 64% of the fans have Seoul. I mean, I think this is a similar discussion to the New York Seoul, except I think that Seoul's on top here.
And here's your flip of the week. I mean, it's a little bit close in the fan vote period, but when you look at this one, we both picked 3-0, but again, that's a coward's 3-0 for a reason. It's because we think it's very possibly going to be 3-2, and it's just you really limit the points you can get when you pick it that way. So this one has got serious 5-match potential. We've talked about the potential of London kind of mismanaging their team, but nobody's playing a B team against Seoul on this stage right now. So I think we can count on the good London showing up here from the beginning and playing from the get-go. It's the other match where they might screw themselves over and play the wrong players. But give me Seoul in this one just because we haven't seen them lose on this stage yet, and London's lost to some teams that now have problems, right? Like they've got a loss against Houston. I'm blanking on they're the Gladiators, right? They might not be swimming in problems right now, but they just
weren't great coming in.
Just starting, right? They're just starting to take off, and London wasn't able to get there.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm looking back and there's really like a flip of the week is like when there's like a team that is very close, but the fans have it like 75+%, and there's just really not that here. It's either like every match is either like, well, I mean, honestly, like even though I wouldn't suggest you flip it, the Florida Mayhem LA Valiant might be the closest one that's like over 90% that maybe should be slightly lower, but even then not so much.
I don't know that one's high enough.
I don't know. But it's definitely close. But and this match is definitely going to be close too. But moving on, San Francisco Shock versus Houston Outlaws. You've got the 4-0 for Houston. I've got the 3-0. 84% of fans are in favor of Houston here. I mean, the only reason I'm not giving the 4-0 again is like, are we like what is Houston
that
going
map
to do?
one
that map one, and like they dropped, like they went 3-2 versus
San Francisco's got talent. I mean, you don't got to justify it here to me, but Dante's been playing out of his mind lately. It's
playing for his
definitely
job,
there.
so he needs to be doing that.
Yeah, I'm calling this a 4-0 again because of map pool. I think there is Hollywood here, so that's your serious chance to lose it. But even that map one, that's where Clockwork's been better on Hanamura, where he's been doing pretty well. So I still hope they abandon that horrible strategy. But if they don't, I think they're going to be reasonably okay here. Again, it could be a little rough on Nepal, but I'm expecting no more than one of these to go the opposite direction, and I'm not even expecting one of them to. What I'm most interested in is like, can Houston really show significant improvement on Hollywood? Like, can we see stage 3 on that map, please? Or I mean, they're not going to Route 66, thank God. But they haven't shown us stage 3 on either one of those maps. And sometimes it's been because they held early and didn't have to get there or whatever, but I don't care. Every other team's showing us a 3rd stage on that map at least once. Right. You got to be able to get through Streets phase. So when you're the better team by a significant margin, even given their struggles, they should still be the better team. Just go out there and prove it and show it to me. If this one's close, as an Outlaws fan, I'm going to be looking for them to make moves 100%, have to make moves before the close of the stage. I think we're getting wind of a signing that's already in the works for Houston. Hopefully that pans out, because I think it would help them a lot. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. This one is just a matter of like, does San Francisco take a map or make it close? And I'm not sure that they can, considering the maps that were played. If Route 66 was here, I would entertain the idea that this could get interesting, but I just don't see it.
Yeah, it's 84% Houston. I don't think I flipped this one. Not with San Francisco Shock, but
not until stage 3.
Not yeah, exactly. The last match of the week, like literally the last match of the week, not the last match of the week. This is probably not going to be a match of the week type of game, but Dallas Fuel versus Philadelphia Fusion. We've both got the Cowards 3-0 for Philly, because you know what? Bad Philly can show up against anyone. It can rear its ugly head. Although EQO seems to be mitigating that at least a little bit. 94% of the fans are in favor of Philly here. Only question I have here is, like, are we ever going to see Shadowburn again, or is he being shopped around right now, or like is he just on the bench?
Yeah, this is kind of like the Houston match right now. Like, yes, Philly is shown the ability to not show up and give good games, but I'm not about predicting that to happen, especially not here when it's so lopsided. Dallas isn't going to likely. Yes, I do think getting rid of XQC was addition by subtraction, but there's no way it's like an immediate, like, okay, like instantly we're just fine, right? It's going, if anything, there's no way that happens for Dallas anymore.
XQC is a good player.
Right. And if that didn't happen just at the flip of stage 1 into stage 2, it's going to be a long recovery process. So don't look for a flip here or anything like that. I would not flip. I really wanted to pick this one 4-0, but I'm worried they're not going to play Rascal, which makes me have to pick the Cowards 3-0. You're not,
yeah,
it's a stretch, but I like
it. They're Cowards. But that's it. We do have another iTunes review. This is close to one of the longest episodes we've had, but we do have one last iTunes review to close us out here, Death.
Yeah, this is a 5-star review from Grizzly Adams HD. One of the best podcasts ever, 2 exclamation points. Really, really appreciate it, man. Means a lot. The text of the review was Great Wall. So love that. Yep. Gotta have that. Yeah, gotta show that some love. It's a surefire way to make sure I don't miss it. So yeah, thank you so much for the review, guys. If you haven't left us an iTunes review, please do so. It helps the podcast more than you could possibly know. And it helps the podcast too, more than I fully understand,
or anyone really.
Yeah. So
except for those people over at what was it? School of Movies. The people at School of Movies understand.
They've clearly understand things on a whole different level than I do. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you so much for this review and any that you guys might leave us.
Yes, make sure to head over to the iTunes account for this podcast and for all the other ones that you listen to. Remember, they are going to be flipping over. But you can always find everything that we do over at highnoonpodcast.com. Of course, the YouTube link. The YouTube is staying the same. It's always going to be the High Noon Podcast YouTube. We're not making separate YouTubes for all of them, at least not in the foreseeable future. We have no plans to do that.
No, we've got playlists for that.
We got playlists for that, exactly. That's going to be it, guys. Huge thanks to everyone who tuned in live at twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast. Huge thanks to all the patrons. Patreon.com/High Noon Podcast. Keep an eye out for that 12-hour stream that is going to be coming up sometime soon. Remember, you can check out everything.
Between stages.
Probably between stages is going to be the most likely option, depending on the dates of that. I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But that is going to be it. Remember, check out highnoonpodcast.com for everything that High Noon Productions does. Check us out tomorrow right here, twitch.tv/High Noon Podcast for Around the Payload number 12. Jesus, so many episodes. But that is going to be it for Deathblow. I am the Blevins, and remember, it's High Noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. Through the
the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now guides my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
XQ, see ya later.